Oh, hello. I'm glad you could join me again. Nice out, isn't it? And when I've said that, I'm not really telling you the truth this week. It's more like nice down, isn't it? We're going to talk about a commodity that was as precious as gold at one time, and it was won in the same way that gold was. As far as us here in South Yorkshire are concerned, it was one of the two major industries at one time. One is still going in a certain way. This, I'm afraid, isn't. Have I given you a clue where we might be? Take a look for yourself. Yes, we're at the National Coal Mining Museum at Cap House Colliery. It's a bit out of South Yorkshire in the Wakefield and Huddersfield area, but we thought we'd come to this because this place is special. How special? Well, why don't you come with me and let's find out exactly how special it is. You know, there's more to a mining museum than just the pit head, the winding gear, the ponies, the railway, the scenery for that matter. It's got more to offer than that, and to tell us a little bit about it, Sally Ann Burley. Sally, I think first of all it's easy to say, what is your role here?
I'm one of the assistant education officers here.
Yeah. In a way, that says to me that you look after school children and you arrange visits and things like that, but I'm sure it's much broader than that, isn't it?
Oh, yes.
Tell me how broad it is and what you do.
Right, well, we do have a very good school offer for formal visits to the museum, but it is, as you suggest, a lot broader than that. We do storytelling and activities for under fives so that they actually start to come to the museum as soon as they can walk, really.
And it's hands-on to a certain extent.
Oh, very much so, yes. We do family activities in the summer holidays and throughout the holidays, actually, the school holidays. And, of course, we are really interested in adults coming to share some of their expertise or learn new skills at the museum.
I pick you up on share their expertise. So this is a two-way experience for an education officer. You're not just handing down knowledge, you're actually wishing to receive it, are you?
Oh, absolutely. Learning we regard as being a two-way process.
Right, okay. So when we're coming to this learning experience, has the sort of museum end rather than the physical objects, has it been laid out in a learning sort of way? I'm thinking of the two museums that you've got that play completely different focus on things. You've got the one that's got all the paraphernalia and the voices going, and you've got the one that's rather quieter and just has trundling rails and all the mechanisation that went into it. Has it been planned that way?
Actually, I think the museum is evolving all the time. A lot of people, I feel that they have been to the museum because they have been on the underground tour, which is fabulous, it really is. But of course, you know, it is a 45-acre site, so there's plenty of different activities for people to do and to keep coming back to do.
Yes, you can't cover it all in a day,
Oh,
can
certainly
you?
not, no.
Do you arrange activities for groups, for instance, local history groups that might actually want to know more about the history of where they live?
We do have a good outreach programme which will include that. Some of our curators are quite prepared to go out to do very interesting talks to groups such as you mentioned.
There you are. You can't go wrong. If you want to talk, get in touch. You've also, which surprised me a bit, got a very large shop. The process of this obviously is to sell things, but it's a good idea that you've come up with souvenirs. Have you got any running in that, being an education officer, or do you use it in your job?
Well, certainly. I mean, where we're actually sat here is in the temporary exhibition space, and we have a rolling programme of exhibitions each year. And of course, as part of the education team, we do make sure that some of the things that might be in the shop do have some relevance
to what's
the
been
exhibition.
seen.
Yes.
Right, got it. And also, while we've been walking about, I've seen lots of people who actually work here as a job, yourself for instance, but lots of people who actually volunteer because they actually want something to do. Now, I'm sort of thinking, if I'm a retired person and I'm looking for something, you've seen this film that we made, and you might think, I could do with working a couple of hours, couple of days there, something like that. I wonder if I could. And for somebody at school saying, I'm really into history and local, and I might be able to make a career out of this if I become a teacher, can I get some hands-on experience? Can they, and what should they do?
It's part of my job. I am actually the volunteer coordinator.
The person to come to talk about it.
If people would like to go onto our website, www.ncm.org.uk, and they go to the Learning tab, and they will actually find there explained the volunteer opportunities. So they can either access the opportunities that are available here for volunteers through the website and fill in the online application form, which gets through to me, and then I will contact them. Or, of course, some people, perhaps, they're not so keen at doing that. There's a telephone. They can
give us
absolutely, or even call in and
ask
to see me.
Just turn up and say, I've come to have a look round, I'd like to volunteer. You don't say no, do you? Well, when I say they can fill a form in here, because obviously you've got to have the right sort of person, haven't you, in many respects.
Absolutely,
yeah.
And of course there are certain volunteer roles that we have, and we obviously hope to match people to those things that perhaps they're wishing to develop their new skills, or, as I said to you earlier, we are quite aware that with this particular topic that our museum deals with, there are a lot of people out there who've got expertise that they can actually share with us.
There you go. So if you think you fulfil that bill and you would like to, come here, and next time we're filming here, you might be taking me round, you never know. Anyway, it's time we moved on. We've come outside now because it's time for the horses to be the stars in the programme. It was hard work for this one, because before steam engines were used to wind cages up and down that shaft, a poor old horse had to do it on a contraption called a gin. There are interpretation boards to help you understand how it works. But this is a modern reconstruction of one, including a reconstructed horse. Oh, but there are real ones. I wonder if you'll find them funny. Eric and Ernie? By heck, that rings a bit of a bell. But it doesn't ring the bell that you think, it rings the pithead bell, because Eric and Ernie are not comedians, although at some point in the past some pitmen would say there were some comedians down there. No, they are pit ponies, and Neil Beaumont's going to tell me all about them. Did you choose the name first of all, Neil?
No, they were actually called this when we got them, because when we actually lost the old working ponies...
The last of the working ponies, yes.
Yeah, we actually decided that we'd actually give something a home that needed a home, so we got in touch with the RSPCA.
And they said, yes, we would love to help you.
Yep.
And that's where they came. But
That's
it's not lost on people, I should imagine, that come here to visit, is it? So, OK, you've got pit ponies. This is this Ernie or Eric?
Ernie.
This is Ernie. And behind us, Finn, the horse.
Finn.
Why ponies, why horses? Surely just standardising on one would have been all right.
No, because actually they were using different horses and ponies. There was what you call a deep mine pony, which was your small ponies, which were the size of Ernie or even
like
smaller.
Ernie, yeah.
Those were the ponies that worked and lived underground all the time.
Yeah.
And then you got the big horse like
Finn here, yeah.
And he mainly worked on the surface, moving materials around and doing
haulage,
deliveries.
Just haulage about the pit head.
Yeah, but you'd actually got what you call a drift mine pony then, which was in between the size of those two.
Wow.
And they actually worked underground during the day, but actually lived on the surface on the night, so they came in and out of the mine daily.
Yeah, daily. So this sounds like a bit of a specialist job. So were there actually pitmen who just looked after the ponies and marshalled them and got them to where they needed to be and do what they had to do?
Yes, there was people that actually looked after them, and their job was solely for the welfare of them, to make sure that everything was all right, they were healthy enough, and that they were ready to go and do a full working day.
I think people might think, ponies down the pit all day, a bit cruel, and I bet they're not looked after. But that wasn't the case. place, really, was it?
It wasn't in as early years. It was. They weren't looked after that well in the early years, and life expectancy was only probably 8 or 9 year old, and it was mainly due to accidents.
Yes, yeah.
But your mine owners then started realising it was actually costing them quite a bit of money. They could replace a miner, and it didn't cost them anything, but if they replaced a pony, it cost them. So
That's a terrible thought, isn't it? That in fact pit ponies were valued more than human beings in
Which
some
they were.
people's eyes.
Yep. So I can say after that, then say your ponies were actually living up to into their early 20s, and they stayed and
Right.
lived underground all that time. I'm going to say, and it was just a case of, I'm going to say, the more they looked after them, the healthier they were, the longer they could
and,
keep
yeah.
a working life for them.
Absolutely. Now, on top of that, I'd always thought, you see, horses, ponies down a pit, that's ancient history. But actually, it's not, is it? I mean, I was just flabbergasted when we were talking earlier as to how late ponies had actually been in pits.
Yep, I'm going to say your last deep mine ponies actually finished working in 1994. We got two from Ellington Colliery up in Northumberland, and that's where they came
So we're
from.
only speaking about 20 years ago that
Yep.
the last pit pony came out. But actually there was some went on to 1997, wasn't there?
1999 it actually was.
Oh, yes, so that's, we're talking less than 15 years
Yep,
ago here.
and those were
Ooh.
actually drift mine ponies, and one was from North Wales and one was from South Wales.
Yeah.
And they were from
Did
smaller private
they
mines.
neigh with a Welsh accent?
They certainly did. I'll say they took a bit of. They didn't quite understand us when they first came here. I can say obviously they were
They
spoken
used
to
be-
in Welsh.
Yes. Yeah. So, what sort of temperament have they got? Are they okay for the little ones to come and have a look at while they're
Yeah,
here
they're
at Cap
absolutely
House?
great. Yeah, I'm going to say what we ask them. If anybody actually wants to stroke them, if they will ask them, because we do have bars up, and it's
Yes.
not to keep them away. It's basically to stop people feeding them.
Yeah, that's the thing.
That's the only thing.
They'd be killed with kindness,
Yes.
wouldn't they?
Yeah, they would.
So, what's your job here?
We're actually, I'm going to say, we're here to do the demonstrations and talk to the public and let them know exactly what the ponies used to do, what they do now. And say they're actually in the stables from 10 o'clock in the morning till 3 o'clock in the afternoon. And that way we can do some work with them, we can give them a brush, clean all the feet out and make sure everything's all right with them, and say, and talk to the public.
How do the public react when they come here and see these live ex-working horses?
The people that come, they find it fantastic because they actually like it because they can get up to them.
Yeah. In fact, they're earning brass for you, aren't they, in certain respects? Because I've noticed you've got these wonderful little adaptations where somebody can help with their upkeep by just putting a few coins in, haven't they?
Yeah, they have, I'm going to say, and it is important, and say with everything that's been going on at the museum and all the cuts that we've got now, and say we do rely totally more or less on donations from
Yeah.
people to keep them.
Yeah, and long may it be, but isn't there a problem here? I mean, like you and me, these creatures have got, there'll be a time when they're no more. Can you get ponies and can you get horses these days to replace them if you had to?
No, there's no working ponies left at all now.
That's
Say
it, yeah.
we lost our actual ponies that worked underground. One was 5 years ago and the last one was 2 years ago.
So you see, folks, you better come fairly quick to see this because they're not going to be here forever, like you and me. Look at that. That's a bit different, isn't it? Yes, we're in the business end now. This is the lamp room. And if you come here, don't be a bit surprised what you're going to be asked. Stephen's going to give you a taster for it so that you know what to expect when you come here. Stephen, there are rules and regulations and they start here, don't they?
Yeah, from the lamp room all the way underground and to the surface, we're governed by Mines and Quarries Act and its regulations, even though we ceased production almost 30 years ago.
It isn't the point, that is it? You're still underground, you're still covered by the rules.
Yeah, and there's certain dangers, and there's certain items, ordinary everyday items, that aren't allowed underground. For example, you can't take cigarettes and matches and lighters and cigars.
Seems a bit obvious.
That is obvious.
Yeah, but there are
also,
less obvious things, aren't there?
well, yeah, you've got little batteries in lots of things for modern life, like watches and mobile phones and cameras and car keys, calculators, MP3 players. All these things, because they haven't been tested, there's just a tiny chance that it could be dangerous. So, to cover all eventualities, all such items have to be handed in at the lamp room. They're kept safe in a drawer. Each group has its own drawer, its own equipment. as you give your contraband, as we call it, to the lamp
Nice
man.
word.
It sounds like
Lovely word,
sounds like
isn't it?
something pirates might have. But you leave your contraband, and we get a helmet and a
Yeah,
cap lamp.
notice. Yeah,
We tend to hold the lamp in his hands and shine the light where we're
Yeah.
walking. But we get a lamp, which is a tested, approved lamp, and we get a helmet. We keep that all the way underground and back to the surface. When we all eventually come out, about a good hour later, we hand in our lamps and helmets, and in exchange, we give these contraband items back to the
so
people.
in other words, what you give in here, you get out at the end of your tour.
Hopefully, yeah. Unless you end up chasing them on eBay.
Well, there we are, yes.
No, we keep everything. We have a very good record. We don't lose anything.
So, we've given all our things in. Let's go down and see what happens as we descend. Bit spooky here, isn't it? But quite honest, there's nothing to be frightened of. How do I know that? Because Stephen's here with me. Stephen, safety first all the time, and although you've got visitors coming down and the boys and girls will be coming down to have a look around, there's actually nothing at all to be afraid of down a mine, is there, these days?
No, we've come down the shaft, but that's only one of two means of getting out of the pit. We've got a sloping tunnel called a drift, which leads us safely back to the surface.
Yep.
It's a steady walk, 600 metres uphill. That
Yep.
takes us to the fan, a big fan that blows air all the way around the museum. That steady flow of air blows away any dangerous gases and provides a good amount of fresh air for everybody to breathe.
And how do we know that? Because you check it every single day you're open, don't you?
Before we open up for business, one of the authorised inspectors of the museum walks down that sloping tunnel, looks at all parts that will be seen by everybody, and checks it's safe. We've got a monitoring system measuring gases and oxygen and temperatures and carbon monoxide, lots of things. So it's continually monitored and recorded on a computer. So we know we're safe before we start, and we double check that. We use a flame safety lamp to act as an extra precaution.
Which is all you need, lads and lasses. So if you're ready, get your boots on. Not that you need them here, because the floor is absolutely level, and come with us for a trip round the drift and the, what's the other word that you use? Because I usually say, I'd say a tunnel, but it isn't. What do you call it?
We've come down the shaft.
Yeah.
If we wanted to egress, we'd go up the drift, the sloping
yeah.
tunnel, but the level tunnels, they're called roadways.
Roadways,
So we're
that's it.
We're going to investigate the series of roadways here to look at the exhibits.
Right, come on then, we're on the way. Now, for a start, you can see how claustrophobic it can get. Imagine working hours and hours a day in an office this size? Because, Andy, somebody had to, didn't they?
This was the height of luxury when it was built.
Yes, I can believe that after being
And
here.
only higher management were allowed in here. Normal workers would never go in here.
It'd be much too spacious for them,
Yeah,
wouldn't it, in a
much
way?
too luxurious, yeah.
Right.
So we had a desk, coat hanger, and a phone.
Yep.
And that's all they had. No computers, kettles, you name it.
Nothing.
Nothing.
Not even a separate toilet here like the winding
no,
do.
not
So,
that way.
what used to happen here, and why did you have to have an office underground?
Well, through that hole there.
That's
called-
where you are, by the way.
That's called box hole, and the person here will deploy all
Yeah.
the men to the jobs.
Yeah, and they come to this little window like the boys
ones
and
allowed
girls are.
inside, they come
No.
to outside the
Yeah.
window and then get sent to the jobs.
Yeah, so we just say, right, you're on the coal face today. Go on, sling your up and get cutting.
That's basically exactly
And
what
that's
I
what,
said.
yeah, there you are. So, but I mean, even so, it must have been a very tedious job just being under here with barely enough room to stand up.
Well, once you get used to underground,
You'd be all right, I
you
suppose.
feel all right. Yeah, there were a lot of work. All the thoughts and the planning all took place here.
Yep, so they would actually devise the shifts here. It wouldn't come from on high.
No, eventually, when we got communication technology, all this moved upstairs.
Right.
And it was all done from upstairs. But originally,
Yeah.
this was the hub of the organisation.
And the phone's just to say help or bring me a cup of tea.
Well, you could you could say that, but you had to wind it up
Lift.
and
Yeah.
then use it. So that was only communication we had.
There
from
was
them.
with, yeah, right. Okay, well, you've got your ticket. You've been told what to do. Let's go where you'll do it, eh?
Here we have a scene showing a family group working perhaps in the 1820s or 1830s. The man at the back is called a hewer. He's chopping the coal from the coal seam that we can see in the distance. He puts the coal in a sledge or corf, and the woman, the lady, drags out the coal. She's called a hurrier, indicating she's working at great speed. The airflow is controlled by a series of trapdoors, and a child, perhaps as young as 5, controls the trapdoor. So we've got a trapper, a hewer and a hurrier, a family group working in the 1820s and 1830s. This is a time before there's any legislation whatsoever about coal mining. The man works by candlelight, all others are in absolute darkness.
Well, the lads have gone off now and just left me to sign off. We've only scratched the surface of this particular museum at Cap House Colliery. If you come, you'll have to give yourself a lot of time. It's wonderful. There's so much history here, and so much of South Yorkshire is just embedded in this place. But to help you, we will be back next week. Lads, when I said you could go, I didn't mean I was staying here myself. Oh, crikey. Well, all I can say is I hope you're there. I'll see you next week. Let's hope I survive.